Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing something slightly different. We are reviewing one of the classics, one of the best films of all time.
Hey guys, we're doing something slightly different than usual today, and we are reviewing a classic film that I have only just watched for the first time, and that is The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, James Caan, Robert Duvall. It is considered one of the greatest of all time and is probably the definitive gangster movie of all time. So let's tuck in. The Godfather is one of those films that just so effectively launches you and immerses you into the world of the film and the characters living within it within the first few minutes. The opening scene is so infamous, most notably for introducing us to Vito Corleone, played by Marlon Brando, but so effective for introducing us to this kind of duality and this conflict that really underpins the whole saga. And I think it's probably one of the most common themes explored in this sort of crime drama, and that is the balance between this personal family life and the dangerous criminal world that they live in. So well captured in Marlon Brando's opening speech.
You come here on the day that my daughter is to be married.
You know, it's just so iconic and conveys such a calm authority that I think hangs over the whole film. And also, being a film that came out in the early 70s, it is all practical. All the sets, the vast quantities of extras which really just help populate the world. The settings, be that America or Italy, the world just feels so real because it is. I feel like it's a drama that so expertly assembles its ensemble without rushing into it, without feeling the pressures of runtime. And I think that is especially felt in the opening 35 minutes or so, which mostly takes place at Vito Corleone's daughter's wedding, where you've got so many reunions happening, so much backstage action happening, and obviously the ceremony and event itself, which basically provides this microcosm for how the film plays out. A lot of infighting, a lot of alliances, a lot of compromises, and of course the introduction of Al Pacino. I think that Michael Corleone's gradual descent into darkness and that embracing of his family legacy and his role in the family and this kind of surrogate replacement for his father is well handled and well done. I think it's probably my only gripe in the film though, that his initial decision, I think more so his willingness and his over enthusiasm to avenge his father and point blank assassinate the corrupt policeman and crime lord who conspired to have his father killed felt too unearned at the point in the film that it comes for me. It was the only time in the film that I felt a character's behaviour wasn't authentic. Not because you believe that Michael Corleone doesn't have it in him to do it, but more so because we haven't had much exploration of this character up until that point, and really his defining quality up until that point was his first line in the wedding, where he's telling his date that he does not associate with his family in that way, where he rejects that darker part of himself and that knowledge of what his family gets up to, and is clearly establishing him as a character who wants to detach and remove himself from that path. So for him to be the one to so early into the film take up arms and commit a double homicide, even though it is to avenge his father, it felt slightly unearned to me at that point. But for me, that's the only false note in the film. I think the second half of the film, where he really kind of gradually embraces that side of himself and that cold brooding Don who will make you an offer that you cannot refuse, is so well handled, and I think Al Pacino conveys it so well. And coupled with Don Corleone's change from being this powerful figurehead calling the shots, who everyone has to ask permission from, to see him go into a more impulsive, emotional and frail state as he neared the end of his life, was also so well portrayed. And at the heart of the film is that father-son relationship. Even though they're not often on screen together, the way that Michael and Vito complement and contradict each other is still really well handled. And I think it is the dysfunctional family element of The Godfather that lends it the acclaim that it deserves. You've got James Caan as the typical overly macho, emotionally impulsive big brother, whose fatal character flaw is that he is so protective of his family and is willing to act on impulse rather than reason, even at his own expense. I feel like his murder scene is utterly savage and brutal, and I cannot conceive how gratuitous that would have been back in the day when that actually came out in 1972. Robert Duvall is great as the more level-headed, rational and diplomatic family member. And also, while it's fresh on my mind, quick shout out to films back in the day that just normalised body hair on men. At several points in this film, you know, guys are shown to have chest hair, hair on their shoulders, back hair, and it is not vilified because it was normalised. So I don't know how we've gone from the 1970s to the 2020s, where somehow that is this kind of taboo body image, where guys basically need an excess of hair on their head and no hair everywhere else. It's such a weird and toxic body standard. So kudos to films back in the day that really assessed an actor's worth based on their acting skills and not their physique and genetics. Back to The Godfather, such a fantastic film. It is such a good window into a dysfunctional family operating at the heights of power. The screenplay, the long takes, the extended scenes, the subtle use of soundtrack, the performances, the use of slow and calculated camera movements to ramp up tension. Honestly, this was such a riveting watch. I always do struggle when I watch old films now. Some of the sound effects are very dated. Some of the scenes, especially the scene where Sonny is beating up his sister's abusive husband, some of the punches are so clearly not landing, and a few little errors like that, which we're more forgiving of in older films now, I feel, but there are moments that do pull you out like that. Nevertheless, this is a sweeping epic, which is well worth the 3 hours it runs, and is ultimately bolstered by the central performances that carry us through. I also cannot wait to watch The Godfather Part 2 now. I know it's widely acclaimed as being one of the best sequels of all time, and that rare sequel that is even better than the original, so I am very, very keen to tuck into that. But if you have seen The Godfather, guys, do let me know what your thoughts are. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel. That's always a huge help for me.
And in the meantime, we will see you for the next video.